You're listening to Raising Anchor, a Rhode Island FC podcast. We're glad you're here. Hello, and welcome to Raising Anchor, your podcast and source for all things Rhode Island FC. I'm your host, Matt Entrican, coming to you on Wednesday, February 21st. That's right, we're recording on a Wednesday and hoping that everything we say for the next hour remains accurate by the time you listen to it. The Open Cup is back, but it's on life support. Is this the club's only chance to go after the treble before we maybe see the cup go away forever? We've got native Rhode Island signings to talk about in the club's worst-kept secret, and joining the pod for the first time is RIFC Director of Ticketing, Bryan Kim, where he provides updates on what fans can expect from ticket offerings to game day experiences in preparation for the inaugural match, which is just 20 days away. Joining me, per usual, is co-host Jason Carey. Jason, how's it going, my friend?
Doing pretty good, buddy. How about yourself?
My entire rhythm is off. We're recording on the wrong day. Up is down, down is up. Yeah, it is. Thank you. It is your fault. And I want to start with, listeners have already warned me. Several have said at one point, and they said your name specifically, they recognize the dedication I have, but they said there's going to come a point in time where Jason can't record on a Thursday, and that's going to mess you up. What are your backup plans? Who are your secondary co-hosts that you want to have join the pod? And I said, no. Jason's not that kind of guy. Jason's dedicated to the craft. He's dedicated to the fans. We'll never miss a Thursday ever on our deathbeds. We're not even a year in.
Backup plan is record on Wednesday.
No, the backup plan is we don't ever do this again. So
it's preseason, so
we're just getting our reps in. Okay. We're going to have to reevaluate this after today's recording. But how are you doing?
Good. Once the season starts, no more nonsense.
Oh, that's where you put the boot down with the family and the work obligations, and you say this is the priority.
Yep.
I'm sure a lot of fans have to say that to their significant others, right? Like, hey, like what's the joke? Saturday is for the boys.
Saturday is for the boys.
I'm sure there's going to be a lot of instances this year where people that are just joining Rhode Island FC for this inaugural season, they're going to say, wait, what do you mean you've tied up 17 of your Saturdays and Fridays and Wednesdays to go watch soccer? I didn't know this is what I signed up for. So at least we still get to record tonight for listeners, and they may get some dated information. So be kind to us in the social media and Discord if something does not age well over the next 2 days, because let's get honest. When we bring up the Open Cup here in a second, we're working with borrowed knowledge at the moment. This could be completely wrong in 5 minutes, let alone 5 hours. So, but before we jump into that, a couple of the quick things. One, did you see the player photo shoot pictures that got shared online with all the new backgrounds and everything that they're setting up for match day competitions?
No. I saw the new signings. I saw the shout out for birthdays, things like that, but I missed that one.
Do you even cover this club?
I'm not always online.
We're going to have to get you a handle. It's not online Jason Carey. I mean, I respect it. I'm definitely online more now because of this secondary hobby, but you're going to have to get more invested in these times and these places.
They just need to have a pigeon that can bring me these things.
You mean like a Twitter bird that could just share that to you?
Yeah, but that only shares me information about RIFC, not a bunch of things I don't care about.
Listen, sometimes you're gonna need that advertisement for that product from China that you just have to have because your life is too complicated without it. You have to be okay with that. Do you struggle to open jars? They've got a product on Temu for you. This is not a sponsor from Temu, by the way. But so anyways, for those that are living under a rock like Jason, there was an incredible photo shoot. Daedalus is a new media partner with the club, and so they kind of teased a little bit of it, and then the club brought out some pictures. In fact, Prince Sadie had a birthday shot with one of the images that they used, and it was all this bright yellow smoke behind him, and it just looked really rad. So I can't wait to see how they use all of those sessions to hype up the players. I know that our card collector app creator, Craig Jolliker, will probably be using a lot of those images to convert the stock stuff that he has been trying to find just to build the app. And, just kind of a callback to Craig, we had him on earlier this week, and he was able to share all of the great things that he's doing within the card collector app that he's built for Rhode Island FC. There was a lot more scaling than even I thought that he was planning on putting together. I can't wait to be playing against fans in lineups with my card collection. Craig, I'm going to need a couple extra cards thrown my way for this promotion, though, so just go ahead. But for those of you that haven't heard it yet or don't pay attention on social media, there is a promo that you can use inside Craig's app, and that it's Anchors-Up, and that will get you a limited card pack with our podcast card as well. So make sure you go in there, log in daily for the rewards, and just keep collecting, because it is a fun thing to do, especially with no soccer yet starting. So super excited with that. So I have one shout out and one kind of complaint. Which one do you want first?
Let's start with the complaint.
Oh, wow.
What
Negative Nelly over here. Okay. Well, it's official. We bore people. I have a first-hand account from a avid listener that they put this podcast on every Friday morning or Monday morning, just depends on which day of the week they can get to it, but they play it on their commute to drop their kid off to school, and their kid hates us. They want to listen to the top 20. They want to listen to whatever is the cool new music. They don't want to listen to two guys talk about soccer, and that was the feedback that we received. So we're landing well with adults, but we've got to retool this entire podcast to support listening, like children listening and actually enjoying it.
Okay, so do we gotta like dab a lot? Is that what kids?
I think
want?
that's like
We
5
gotta
years
yell
too old already.
No cap. Instead of saying for real, we just put FR for everything.
What's your Riz?
My Riz game's off the chart, yo. I don't think people say that.
I only know like 3 words in today's slang, but yeah, we bore kids. So
I mean,
shout out to the children listening right now.
Sorry,
if you're
kids.
bored, we apologize, but also you should pay attention anyways. It's important that you listen to us. So, and respect your parents. So okay, that was the negative, but the positive, we got a shout out today on Tommy Quinlan's New England Soccer Weekly radio show / podcast.
Nice.
Yeah. So Tommy is a very well-established media personality and influencer with the New England Revolution, and of course all of the talk shows that are anchored in Rhode Island. He's a producer for a majority of those shows. But having said that, he's just started back up his New England Soccer Weekly with his group. They're still primarily focused on the Revolution, but they have added or incorporated Rhode Island FC into that. And so for those of you that are always listening or looking to listen for more content, we've been asked a couple of times, like, will we do the immediate following recap of the performance of the team? But this will be another conduit for you guys to listen to them and kind of find out what's going on from his take on how the club is doing. So definitely give that a listen. He's tentatively scheduling those for Wednesdays right now. Will always be a Friday release, or if it's a double game week, we'll make sure that there's also a game preview and recap the day before. So, on those double weeks, expect double episodes, or just sometimes we have interviews like we dropped earlier this week with the card collector app. So that's the quick hits. You ready to get into the big stuff? So Open Cup, it's still alive. It refuses to die.
Just barely.
It is clinging to it's like holding on to the rail. It's plugged into life support. I don't know what analogy you want, but it is struggling to die. And, a week ago, if you had asked, there were rumors, very strong rumors, that MLS had effectively killed it because without their participation, USSF was not going to hold the tournament, whether that was because of dollars or because of egos. It was everything except for the intent or inclination to preserve soccer history. I can tell you that. But in the social outcry that came as a result of that, there's been a kind of hybrid restructuring on what we can expect from the Open Cup moving forward. So some of this to the diehards is not new news, but we read through some of the most recent articles, and there's a couple of contacts we have both in the USSF and MLS as well that have been sharing what they've learned and what they can share. And so there's a couple of other details that we want to unpack tonight. So what we know is MLS will be reducing its footprint or its participation numbers from its senior teams from 29 all the way down to 8. So the last time we talked on the most recent pod, we had talked about how prior to 2011, it was half of the clubs. And then in the very earliest inclinations, it was 8 teams. So they've moved the needle all the way back down to a minimum participation of 8 clubs. Now, what's so different about this besides the 8, and what everyone seemed to be undercutting in the news that's been announced so far, is they also slid in that MLS Next Pro teams will be entering on the league's behalf. And I remember in the December discussions where everyone thought this had been put to bed, that was the initial proposal that MLS had thrown out the first time, was that there was no teams and that Next Pro would be replacing all of their teams. So immediately, this just already feels like a loss to the Cup, to the participants, because it seems like we're going to unpack a lot more here, but it already just feels like MLS won without any repercussions. The USSF is toothless here. There's no sanctioning. There's no ramifications. There's no penalties. It sounds like MLS already has just won this. Is that something that is that how it feels for you?
To a certain extent, yes. It is hard to say without knowing what the future looks like. Currently, this setup is for 2024 only. They are still working on what the 2025 tournament will look like, assuming that it happens as well. I mean, this just comes down to MLS, and the owners want more control, I think.
I think it's more than that now. To be honest, if you had told me this 2 weeks ago, I would have agreed with that. But with these new findings that are coming out, I think it's more than that. I think it's also money, which is a weird thing to say with a league that charges $500 million, has a gajillion
$200 jerseys.
Yeah, the $200 jerseys, a gajillion dollar TV sponsorship deal with Apple. Messi's here. I mean, like I wrote on MLS's page earlier today, like they're just taking L's left and right now, between the brokenness of their storied team, the fact that they're charging all of that money for kits, the fact that MLS season pass is not going to be free to anyone except for season ticket members. So last year they gave away the pass to like a lot of different people. The Open Cup debacle.
T-Mobile gave it away last year, I think, right?
Yeah,
and they're not doing it this year.
They're not even a discount. The whole league congestion, the Open Cup debacle, and then the fact that they're not restructuring the playoffs back to, like, nobody liked the playoff format last year, but they're keeping that too. So hashtag not an MLS podcast, but they are just, in a year that all eyes are on, this is a comedy of epic proportions that they're writing for themselves.
Yeah, and not to go too off on a tangent, but maybe they see that, with the exception of like what LA fans protesting, like people are still going to their games. So even though people are upset, they're still raking in the money. So unless people decide to vote with their wallets and say, hey, I do not like the direction of the league, these clubs, and I don't know, protest and don't go to games, the owners are like, okay, you can complain all you want, but we're still making all this money.
Let's be honest too, the people that have been the loudest complainers are often the people that don't go to games in the first place, don't have Apple TV. They're just soccer snobs or just people who want to hate on the internet, right? So I think that lines up perfectly. But to jump back into what we know about the Open Cup. So we mentioned that there are 8 teams that we know will participate. The rumor right now circling amongst insiders is that these 8 teams will be selected from the bottom of the table in 2023 standings. So these would be clubs that did not.
Miami.
Well, hold on. So you're spoiling the lead there, right? But you're also spot on. If you think about it, with this quote unquote schedule congestion, with Leagues Cup off the board, let's just remove that, Champions League and how that performs, that's where the biggest draw from all of the pre-qualifiers and the clubs that are anticipated to make some sort of run, those are the teams that, were at the top of the table that don't have the ability to benefit or succeed with this many additional games. So that does put that lens on the bottom tier. So looking at 2023's performers, that's your Austin, Colorado, LA Galaxy, Minnesota, DC United, Chicago, and Toronto FC, with the exception that Inter Miami, which did end up at the bottom of the table, not wood and spoon contenders, but close for the league, they would also then qualify. But we also know that Apple has this issue because they've not recognized the Open Cup from their deep final run last season. They're not interested in it. So even if they do go with the bottom of the league performance, Inter Miami will most definitely be protected from that. And I wouldn't be surprised unless we hear about the teams early in the announcement, and we'll talk about the rounds in a second. Any of these other teams that may suddenly make a storied run, like they could just wait to see in May, like, okay, well, who's at the bottom of the table right now, in addition to the people we were selecting from last season. Okay, here's the 8 that come in. So your San Jose's could still be, they were close to it. Montreal was very close. Those could be the replacement teams for any group that doesn't want to participate, even though they've been selected for tribute.
Yeah, I almost wonder if it's going to be slightly arbitrary, because I wonder too, like, would the Galaxy actually be there? I don't know. I almost wonder if it becomes like a boys club and they start to like pick, well, Austin's newer to the league, we'll send them, maybe Minnesota, and they just kind of arbitrarily pick various teams throughout the league that they maybe are not the flashiest teams per se in different markets, and just make them go instead.
So I like where you're going with that, and I'll double down on that and say the other thing, which we haven't confirmed if it is going to carry over, but it has been a talking point throughout the week, is that when MLS did come back to the table to negotiate for Open Cup participation, they had a demand that there was a 40% revenue share when the club would go to an away club to compete, which is insane that they think that they can ask for a revenue share, because that if a USL club or a regional amateur club were to compete in an MLS home stadium, MLS isn't sharing anything.
Isn't that 40% revenue supposed to go to the Open Cup is what they were talking about?
No. So there's already a structure based on the round that you're in that pays operations costs, your berth in the tournament itself, and then there is a portion of tickets through Turnstile that are converted into dollars back to the USSF. That being said, this is something completely separate. This is MLS basically saying, hey, we're the draw here, not you. These fans wouldn't show up in this capacity if we weren't coming to your stadium. You need to pay us for it. And like, again, if that's the take you want to have, fine. But then you need to offer it if the clubs are going to you, which they didn't even bring that up. But then also, too, we all know that some of these clubs, they survive the season by having these additional games in their home stadiums, whether it's from a regional competition level or it's landing the big fish of an MLS club coming and playing. This is just, again, MLS. It's not control. This is MLS wanting to make it about money to protect themselves, and this is about them proving a point that they don't get pushed around by the ever-encroaching efforts of USL. So, it's completely asinine to think that this is anything but that. So going back to what you asked, though, about like what teams do we think could show up, while we mentioned the bottom 8, there's probably also some regional qualification that they need to think about from a geography standpoint about the MLS Next Pro teams that they would want to show up. Because here's the thing no one's really taken into a consideration yet. People are saying, oh, MLS is afraid of the USL Championship knocking them out from this tournament at some point. People have also said that's why they don't want their senior teams, which are then actually just flooded with the MLS Next Pro Academy or second teams showing up, because even though, it would be Rhode Island FC versus the New England Revolution and it would actually be Revs 2, it's bad optics for the domestic, for the people that aren't really like into soccer, and then, the international people that may be just like looking at scores from abroad. This same thing has a reverse effect on the USL Championship now, where MLS Next Pro teams are the quote unquote underdogs that could come up and try to knock out the USL Championship sides, right? So you have Division 2 chomping at the heels of Division 1, and now we've inserted Division 3 teams to try to displace Division 2 teams that could say, oh, look, your Division 2's nothing. Like, we're just as good at D3, so, like, you shouldn't even pay attention to this league. Like, that's something that people need to consider, and I wouldn't be surprised if MLS is strategic in making sure that the clubs that are represented are the clubs that show up the best in terms of their roster construction and their performance from last year. So, like, Columbus Crew 2 was in the finals for the MLS Next Pro. I don't remember the team they lost to, But I wouldn't be surprised then with, the crew obviously won. So they're not participating, but the crew too. That'd be a perfect opportunity if Columbus is hungry enough to say, "Hey, go out there, guys, and show the world what you can do." I wouldn't be surprised if there's some decision-making mechanisms for MLS to start choosing where. So if it's not from a geography standpoint, it's definitely going to be from a quality of talent, or if the MLS teams from a senior level say, "Hey, we want to participate," like the DC Uniteds of the world say, "Hey, we're not going to win MLS Cup. But we feel with the roster we have constructed this year, we could go out and get an Open Cup win."
Do you think Houston Dynamo will push to be in it? I mean, I would want to defend my title.
I don't know. That's a great question. I mean, they were in the playoffs. They got knocked out by LAFC deep. They won against a Messi-less Inter Miami. I mean, yeah. Me personally, I would always want to be able to show up as a champion, that I could do things over and over again. Maybe MLS is going to decide for them. Maybe they say, "Hey, Houston, we hear you, but we need to give Toronto FC a chance because they're not going to win anything this year."
Do you think we'd be having a different conversation right now if Inter Messi won this tournament?
Oh, if he had won this,
because I wonder if
MLS would have bought Apple would have bought the broadcast rights for Open Cup, and this would have been a done deal.
I imagine a player like him is very competitive, and he would have wanted to defend his title.
100%, because then they would compare him to all, like, "Oh, well, you couldn't go back to back. You're a one-hit wonder." All right, so let's move into the technicals of this. So from the leaks that we found so far, we know that the first round will kick off on March 19th, and that's where qualifying amateur teams that we're working through last year, as well as Division 3 rosters, including MLS Next Pro, USL 1, and NISA will compete. So that's the first round. Then through the process of elimination of those groups, we enter round 2, which is starting on April 2nd through the 3rd. And that's just a continuation of those teams knocking each other out until we get to round 3. Now, round 3 is where things start to matter for the USL, but more so specifically for Rhode Island FC, because that's where we will enter the competition. So either on April 16th or April 17th, which are weekdays. Mark your calendars now, fans. We will be playing a competitive match in the Open Cup. I cannot confirm, because the draw hasn't happened yet, what that club competition will look like. But from the looks of things, we will be playing either one of the winners from the previous round of 1 or 2, or one of the additional USL clubs that's entering in the 3rd round. Now, for USL competition, it's not every team. They are putting some in reserve to round 4 now because of MLS's departure. So in the in the USL round, you're going to see all of the bottom of the table when it comes to conference winners. And then everyone who didn't play or who didn't successfully make it into playoffs last year enter in round 3. So I think the cutoff is position number 7 and 8. So anything from 7 and below on each of the conferences are entering in round 3. And then anyone that placed higher than 7th in their conference will be entering in round 4. So in round 3, we're in because we didn't play last year. But guess who else is in? That's right down the street.
Connecticut.
Exactly, just the whole state.
Yep.
We don't even call them by their name anymore. So yeah, so there is a chance, and it's a very strong chance, knowing that the draw for this tournament is always favored in a regional geography. There's a very strong likelihood that it'll be Hartford Athletic on either April 16th or April 17th. Now, there are a couple of other clubs that can enter into this space too. So again, anything is possible, because that's the beauty of knockout soccer. But there are some other clubs that we could consider. So there's Brockton FC United, which is a lower division team in Massachusetts. There's a club that it's here. I've read it 3 times. I didn't bother to try to find the pronunciation because I think it would break my computer. But there's Varingen Erzgebirge.
Varingen Erzgebirge.
I love that you followed me into that trap.
Yeah, Erzgebirge. I don't know.
So they're from Pennsylvania. There's Christos FC in Maryland. Those are all lower division teams. And then there's the Maryland Bobcats and NISA. And then there's the Richmond Kickers and USL 1 that could potentially face us. And then if MLS Next Pro teams that entered into the earliest stages, if they've still survived, it's the likes of potentially the Revs 2, NYCFC 2, or Red Bull 2 that would join us. And that's pretty interesting too, because one, we already played the Revs 2 in preseason. So we at least have an understanding. And then of course there's the, revs to RIFC connection. But then with NYCFC 2 and Red Bull 2, we have alumni from those two clubs on our squad, right? Through Amos Shapiro-Thompson and Stephen Turnbull. So that would be interesting competitions there. But I think you said you wanted to tell me something really interesting about the Richmond Kickers.
Oh, about how they have the most amazing jersey ever. It says Arby's on the front, and it looks super 90s.
I need to know was that probably the last time Arby's invested in soccer?
I don't know.
I think they need to come back. Arby's baffles me as a company. No shade though. So then we go into round 4 after those lineups, and that's where the rest of those USL teams will enter in on 5-6 to 5-7, and then we enter the round of 16, which will be played on May 11th and 12th. And then after that, that's when you line up. There's a couple of months break, and we see in the August and September timeline where those final rounds of 8 clubs start lining up for their final knockouts until there's a champion. So it's coming, and like we've said, continue to mark that calendar that there's a strong chance that we will be playing Hartford at Trinity Health on either April 16th or 17th, unless the club has pivoted and they said, hey, now that we've thought about it, now that we have the date, we'd rather try to bid for the hosting rights. I'm not sure how that really works, because there's been times where I know a club can defer when they say they don't want to host, but I don't know what happens when 2 clubs offer. So that'll be a very interesting shakeup when that happens. That's what's going on. Do you have any faith that this is going to continue beyond 2024?
I don't know. I want it to. The interesting thing to point out is that this tournament has been going on longer than any of the leagues that we're talking about right now. In this point in the game, though, with how much money is involved in sports, if MLS backed out and we only had USL and amateur, NISA, and so on and so forth, I don't know how well run USSF is. I don't have a lot of faith in it sometimes, that I wonder if there is enough money there to keep this going. I imagine they might have to make a lot of changes. We might have to look at a very regional type of tournament where to cut down on costs for travel, because that's the big problem that we have here in a lot of American sports. I don't think people realize how big this country is, and as cool as it is to have regional teams like Vermont Green all of a sudden draw the Houston Dynamo, that is such a long distance to travel, and for those teams to play each other, that it just doesn't really make any sense. As much as I would like to see things like that happen, because that's how you build history, right? You can find random friendships where teams really get along and like each other, or create random rivalries. But in the name of preserving the tournament, I would hope that they can find some way to keep it going, even if it doesn't mean that like it offers a CONCACAF slot. I think it is still something that a lot of soccer fans are into.
I mean, listen, the CONCACAF slot is the ultimate achievement, and that's why it's so elusive for lower division teams. But to your point, if for some reason this can't continue in the capacity it is, then they need to assess at least like what are the payouts, like what are the financial rewards. I know that CONCACAF actually had to go through a restructure for its Champions Cup because other clubs were like, this isn't worth it. We go down and play Liga MX teams and it gets super scrappy. Like we end up with hurt players. There's no reason that money's here. It's the same reason
there's a lot of those small like Central American countries that don't have, I imagine those teams do not have tons of money to be flying all the way out here to play MLS teams or even Liga MX teams. Even the big boys out here in the North American game, are concerned about travel costs. Yeah, no, I think what will happen next is if the CONCACAF slot is removed, then USL is going to have to take a serious consideration on what it means to be D1 sanctioned, because USL announced today they are putting all of their clubs in, right? So that was probably intentional to show to the federation if they ever want to build a lawsuit or if they want to stack
up on the Nassau lawsuit of antitrust, because don't think that that's not coming back as a result of this. Nassau's whole argument was that USSF positioned MLS intentionally at the top and disregarded other qualifications that they held other leagues to, and subjected them to a lower participation instead of equality. This shows up completely to defend that. So the New York Cosmos owner, who's been fighting this since like 2016, he's probably just laughing all day every day right now, because this just basically hands him a bulletproof case. But having said that, if they don't get a CONCACAF slot and they take that away, or the cup is gone, USL is going to have to find another way to get into that space, and that's either viability to Division 1 sanctioning or something else. To wrap things up, though, I still think that the reason the USSF didn't back this harder was because they announced that they anticipate first time ever profitability by 2026, ahead of the World Cup. So technically in 2025, they will have made a profit for the first time ever as a federation, and because they've been a sunken cost for decades. And I think that's important because it's not much. Like, they've had an operating loss of, I think, at least 30 million a year for the last 5 to 10 years.
Wow.
But this first time ever, they're going to have like a positive operating model of like $2 to $5 million. I bet you that money immediately gets soaked up by the Open Cup if they had to go back and restructure to do things correctly. So obviously that's not on the table while they're trying to get to the World Cup. Maybe it could be something after, but don't think that money doesn't come into this. So we've talked so long about the Open Cup. I don't want to talk about it ever again unless it's so announced that it's fully revived or it's dead. I
want to talk about the Open Cup.
I mean, I want to talk about it when we play, but I don't want to talk about it anymore about this stuff. So let's get on to the fun stuff. We got signings to cover. Rhode Island FC, they did it. They finally... I didn't even realize it until the announcement came out.
We signed our first 2 players?
Well, kind of. You're not wrong, but you're also not completely right. We did sign our first 2 Rhode Island native players, and I don't know why I didn't realize this sooner, that we didn't have anyone from the group, because you keep hearing like, oh, this was a Revs Academy person, or this person new coach, and so there's like these tie-ins, right? Like all of these graphs and charts that would connect people to that, but there was no native Rhode Islander. And it's so funny because in the same week that we announced that we've signed 2 Rhode Island natives, there was another Rhode Island native who was announced for the wrong club, and that was Damian Rivera. Everyone had put like surefire bets down that Tico would be joining from the Revs and come down to Rhode Island FC. So much so that a couple of people online had talked that there's bad blood between the Revs now and the Rhode Island FC groups. And that's what prevented Rivera from coming to Rhode Island FC. We tried to confirm that with the club. There was no mention, there was no comments about that. Nothing has been shared in that capacity. We know that Tampa Bay has been serviced for other Revs players that had to be loaned out, so there's an existing relationship there. People are saying, oh, well, the Revs don't want their product to compete potentially against an Open Cup match, or that they don't want them to show that Rhode Island FC is just as viable of a product. I disagree with all of that. I think that if a player lives locally, rather than uproot their entire life, give them immediate access to still always be at their facilities, RIFC would have been the choice destination. If I had to guess anything, and this is strictly my opinion, no sourcing whatsoever, my guess is there was probably a conversation that Coach Cano had early on about bringing someone like Damian over to Rhode Island FC, but that conversation probably happened in, I don't know, August, September, as he was building out the roster. When you remember what the Revs front office and technical staffs looked like in that time period, it was a dumpster fire. They couldn't make decisions like that, and they didn't know what kind of roster strategies they were going to need to use as they retooled and rebuilt their front office. So they didn't get to a supplemental roster block until very late into the transfer windows and realized that they needed to make moves accordingly. By that point, Coach had already signed a majority of the players. So if you were to go back into a Wayback Machine and travel back to the summer of last year, I almost guarantee you there was probably a conversation somewhere like, hey, we recognize this. He'd be a great signing for the club. Is there something you'd like to work out? And that just didn't materialize. But that's completely an assumption. but I don't think there's any of this like bad blood that's been rumored on the internet.
I think that's just people on the internet trying to start stuff. You know, that there probably will be a rivalry between the teams at some point, but you know, I imagine there needs to be a little more history between us before anything actually materializes.
I want to start being able to just like on the record reference, a friend of a brother who had a Dunkin' Donuts with the guy was quoted, he's a reliable source.
Yeah,
don't
my
worry.
friend's uncle, sister, cousin said that they don't like each other.
So, all right, but so that's the Rivera stuff out of the way. Let's talk about the people we actually signed and secured for the club.
So we picked up goalkeeper Nate Silvera. He is an East Providence native, and he spent 2023 with Charlotte FC's second team Crown Legacy FC of MLS Next Pro. Is that like a different version of a Crown Vic? Like the higher tier version?
Oh, you got dad jokes today. I will say, though, all jokes aside, I appreciate the effort that went into not naming the second team Charlotte FC.
Oh, yeah. I absolutely despise
small golf clap to Charlotte FC for not doing that.
I've noticed that they have started to get away from that, but I absolutely despise a team name 2. It's so dumb. I would only accept it if there's no 1 as like a joke. Anyways, back to Nate. He's a household name for fans of Vermont Green as he played for the USL League 2 side in 2022. He was captain of the Green, putting up 900 minutes and 27 saves. The Rhode Island native spent 4 seasons at the University of Mara during his college career. Silvera was named back-to-back America East Goalkeeper of the Year while wearing captain's armband in the final 2 seasons.
I need to find out when you get titles and like awards and accolades like East Goalkeeper of the Year for America. Is that divisionally? Is that like I saw that and I was like, I don't know. Like we've seen a lot of awards for different players, and I need to start learning what the collegiate system offers out so I can keep up with when something gets announced like this and make sure I understand the meaning behind it, because I don't know how big of a deal that award is, or like how just like, hey, we had to give it to someone in the East and we like, not to discredit anything from Nate's accomplishments, but I don't know anything about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, any award is a good award like that, but it's also important to know the context. Like what is the category, the range for this?
Watch, it's like scholastic and has nothing to do with like, it's all academic performance and not anything related
really
to your
at,
on the field
math or something.
So I had a question. I think this is a tremendous pickup. I've already told the team we need to interview him and the other announcement here in a second, because just the fact that we sign people. Nate, we both are here in East Providence, so let's meet up at Borealis and have a coffee sometime soon. But this is, I love the story of picking up people that have spent their entire life trying to get to these moments and now get to not only play, but play for their hometown, literally their hometown. Like that's what propped up Rhode Island FC to begin with. So this is just super incredible. But I have a question for you, because I saw this and my immediate thought was, I was surprised that we picked up a third keeper. I know in a majority of the Division 1 clubs, there are usually 3 keepers. Obviously, you never know what could happen from an injury perspective, and you don't want to be going and doing an emergency signing or an emergency loan to pick someone up. So I'm not against it, but when I did the research on the league and how they approach keepers, did you know that only 8 of the 24 teams in the USL Championship have 3 keepers? And what's weird, of those 8, 2 clubs have 4, which ironically one of them is Hartford Athletics. So I don't like, they must have some really big concerns this year in their defense.
They're just off the rocker.
and then North Carolina FC, which I don't know if they inherited and brought that up as they promoted up and joined as we did, but only 8 teams of 24 have 3 keepers. Everyone else has 2. And here's the crazier stat. 2 clubs right now only have 1 keeper, New Mexico United and Tulsa.
So that tells us New Mexico United and Tulsa like to live life on the edge.
I too like to live dangerously. Yeah. So, but like, what are your thoughts on that? Is 3 like in excess, or is that appropriate? Like, what's your thought there? 3
is standard for all the major teams. So I don't know if as you go further down divisions, it's still the same sport. You still have to worry about what if my main goalkeeper gets like a hamstring injury and is out for 3 months, and then my backup goalkeeper, gets punched in the face or something. Like crazy things have happened. It's one of those like kind of, it's an insurance thing that you get that is important to have, but do you ever need it? Sometimes, but not very often.
The discussion here is Nate is a proven name in USL 2, in MLS Next Pro. He has time. He was a captain. I think that's a huge call out when the goalkeeper is the captain of the squad. So he has leadership. This was definitely not like a diamond in the rough. I think this was a completely non-forecasted acquisition, and so the club was not actively pursuing him. He fell into their lap as a golden opportunity. Obviously, if that's the kind of signing that Nate has become, that wasn't a part of the original plan. With the pedigree and the experience he offers, who's our backup now? Is it still Jackson Lee, or does Nate, with his showcase, show up stronger on paper and should be considered for the number 2 spot? Or is this just going to be one of the fiercest competitions we see all year between Jackson Lee and Nate Silvera?
Yeah, I'll be curious to see how that pans out. Coach seems to be very adamant that you have to earn your spot, so it'll depend on how well they show in training, who will officially be the second.
You didn't answer my question. You said what Coach would say if I asked him that question. I want the real take from you, sir. Just looking at it on paper, Jackson Lee's never spent a minute playing professional soccer yet. Nate has. Is that a deal breaker in the sense of swinging to Nate's favor now, or was it Jackson's first? Because remember, Jackson Lee is no pushover either. He was being scouted and was acquired by LAFC until they found out we had already secured his rights. So like, I want to not downplay Jackson's skills either. If this was game day, you haven't watched either player yet. Who's your second one riding the bench?
Oh, man. Put me on the spot here. Whoever I say, the other guy's not going to like me.
That's why you're the villain here, and I get to remain the hero.
Nice. I'm going to answer your question with another question then. So do you think this is more of us thinking to the future? If there's potential other interest in Jackson Lee, and if Koke Vegas was potentially the best goalkeeper in the league, do we think that maybe we're not going to be able to hold on to both of them to the future, and that Nate is actually going to be our kind of potential future number 1 or number 2?
I mean, listen, you still didn't answer my question, but I'll answer your question first. The reality is this, is that, Mike Parkhurst has gone on the record, and I think Coach Kano has too, that they're never going to hold a player back from an opportunity. And so if there's a chance to play somewhere bigger or to get that larger contract somewhere, as long as it's not going to jeopardize the performance of the club in the immediate, sense, yeah, like there's always a chance that we would sell or move on players that have interest from other places, other leagues, other countries. So I don't think that for a second that you're wrong on that, but I wouldn't say it's as 3D chess as, Nate is this anticipation that we're going to lose both Koke and Jackson in the next 12 to 24 months.
I mean, I don't mean 3D chess in that sense, but you have to be constantly thinking about the future too, in terms of, what does the roster look like next year?
Yeah. Okay. So I'll answer this. I don't know the longevity of a keeper that doesn't play. So I don't know if a keeper wants starting minutes and then finds their way onto another team. So like the inverse of what you just said, Jackson's on the bench every time. I'm just going to go with this example. Jackson's on the bench. He comes in to fill in for a Vegas who can't make a game for whatever reason, and Nate never sees playing time. That would highly motivate Nate. You don't think if Hartford came knocking and said, hey, we'll give you either the second spot or the first spot, like, I feel like the itch starts to create itself for players that don't get the chance to shine, to find opportunities somewhere else. So in that state, Nate would be the first to leave, because he would say like, hey, like I'm getting the skills, I'm getting the reps in practice, but I'm not getting the game minutes. Let me go find something somewhere else. Let me continue to show up in that capacity. So I don't know, but it doesn't really matter, because like you said, that's a future thing for now. I just want to know, who do you think is the most likely to be the one on the bench? And you still haven't answered, so I'm going to hold you to this. Give me a name.
I'll just go by order of signing and say Jackson Lee.
So then it's you did it scientifically and with no other observations. I respect it. I don't know. I'm gonna default to we'll wait and see.
I did watch some highlights of Nate. He looks pretty solid.
So who else we got signing?
Up next, we have midfielder Kevin Vang. Vang joins RIFC from Providence College. Midfielder also played for Bayside FC and was involved in the New England Revolution Academy. Received calls from the U.S. Youth National Team Future Camp in 2015 and an Under-17 National Team Camp in 2016. Throughout his years at the Friars, Vang made 83 appearances and recorded 4 goals and 9 assists and 4,877 minutes. I looked up one of those goals online from the Friars. Pretty impressive.
Was it an outside of the box? Was it a run in? Like, how was it a set piece? What did he do?
He played the ball out wide, and kind of, good positioning, made sure to continue his run into the box. The cross didn't exactly get to him, but he made sure to clean it up, kind of thing.
So that's one of the things. I'm really glad that you mentioned that. I got to see him at the open practice day. The club actually asked us to not talk about it because they were still trialists, and even though they were local trialists, they said, hey, like, we'd prefer it if we just, keep names out of it for now, unless it's an officially signed player. But I noticed first and foremost, Vang was all over the board. I mean, he was running down balls left and right. He was tracking. He was taking. Vang is not also a very tall person, and so his physicality was kind of like the first thing I questioned as I watched him play. He's scrappy. He will get right up into the business end of either a defensive play or an offensive play. He wasn't afraid to take people on, and he started throwing his weight. What weight he had, he started throwing it around, and it made some significant impact to the play that was on the pitch. So much so that there was one point where he did make a small technical mistake on a pass, and I've seen players a million times take that pass and be like, okay, well, I'll leave it to the defenders to track back and to deal with, and we'll get the ball back on another turnover. Vang immediately pivoted and was on him as fast as possible. It kind of reminded me of like Pep Guardiola's style of like, you lose the ball, you go get the ball again. And again, maybe he was showing up that way because he was fighting for a contract. But just his tenacity, that's the best word I could share about him or describe, is he had such a hunger to show up in those chances, and I think he'll be a great addition. And again, he's a Rhode Island native, he's a local, so the importance of that is not lost on me. Did you watch the video signing of him?
I saw the video signing of Nate.
So an hour later, because they did the double announcement like we had called last week. Like an hour later, they did Kevin's. So you missed that one too. It's like strike 3 for you tonight.
I mean, there's a lot of Open Cup news that I was very invested in.
I know.
I have different corners of the internet.
I have to tease you. So like an hour later after Nate's announcement, they did another video, and it had a preface because it had to tease or set the story of what was about to happen. But I guess Kano, in classic Kano Smith fashion, he straight up hoodwinked Kevin into thinking that he had gone in for a medical evaluation that morning for an ankle concern because they had quote unquote thought that there had been some damage and wanted to make sure that he was okay. But they had used that moment in time to just do his entire medical evaluation so that they could sign him to a contract later that day. And they caught him in the moment with the cameras on him, like, hey, did you see this coming? And you could just tell he was like on the verge of tears. Like, he was so excited. So we said this when we interviewed him. Coach Kano can bluff his way out of anything. So, this isn't a negative take on the guy, but never trust anything he says unless he wants you to know that it's the truth, because he can just look you straight in the eye and you'll never know what's going on. So, I mean, I respect him and I do trust him, but like, he also just don't play poker with the guy. That's where I want to go with that. But listen, these are 2 incredible signings. We've already reached out to the club to see if we can get some time with them. And get a chance to hear their stories and their journeys. You had made a connection offline about how, I mean, and it's a natural progression. I didn't see it in Nate's background, It kind of started at East Providence High School and up, but Vang is a Bayside FC, and we know that that's where owner and founder Mike Parkhurst also got some of his earliest time in the league. I'd be curious if some of the same coaches and staff are there after that span of time. Like, if they started young enough, they could very much still be the same coaches that have been holding that academy over for the decades in between.
I imagine that the club because of Mike Parkhurst, probably has a pretty good relationship, at least in terms of communication with Bayside. So they'll probably be hearing about any good talent that is coming through there. Since you gave me a hard question, I'll give you one here. Out of the 2 Rhode Island natives we got here now, who do you think's going to have a longer career with RIFC?
I mean, I would say Nate, because if Nate shows up and secures the second spot or even the starting spot long term, the ability for a goalkeeper to stay on and remain healthy is significantly longer than any other player on the field, right? Kevin is a what looks like a box to box midfielder, so that and you saw it, like he's going to be racking up the mileage, he's going to be racking up the minutes, the physicality of it. I think that strictly on just the health aspect alone, Nate wins in that space. If it comes to talent, though, I think Vang has a better chance to earn solid substitution minutes. And so if that comes down to Nate wanting to leave because he's not getting those minutes and Vang's getting opportunities where he can, then it could be the other way too. So I answered both, but gave my explanations to both of them at the same time.
Yeah, no, I think I probably would agree with you. Goalkeepers do tend to have slightly longer careers, so it's not uncommon to see them to stay at teams for at least a few years. Whereas depending on how Vang's career is going, he might want to, try and maximize your potential. So if there are opportunities for him, he might leave sooner than later.
So coming up next here is our interview with Director of Ticketing Bryan Kim from Rhode Island FC. So sit back and enjoy our conversation. So we're here with Bryan Kim, Director of Ticketing with Rhode Island FC. Bryan, welcome to Raising Anchor.
Oh, thanks for having me here, Matt. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, I can only imagine that this is the absolute crunch time for you as we march ever closer to the inaugural match.
Everyone here behind the scenes is super excited to show the Rhode Island community everything that we've worked on. And I'm sure the community's been waiting for years for this team to finally play. So the 16th can't come soon enough. Everyone's chomping at the bits to get this thing going.
So can you share with listeners exactly what your role is within the organization?
Yeah, for sure. So my role here is the Director of Ticketing with the club. So my job is to develop and implement, some business plans, based around our, sales strategies and, try to get our season ticket numbers up and, our group, groups out to our games as well. So everything kind of just surrounds, getting folks, out to our matches and experiencing, what we have on the field and then everything that, we'll have off the field as well.
You're no stranger to this type of work. In fact, you started it as early as your time with another USL club, Phoenix Rising. And since then, you've transitioned to the NHL and now back to the USL. What has that journey been like for you so far?
Extremely rewarding, Matt. I feel like I'm one of the very few friends out of my friend group that knew exactly what I wanted to do at a very young age. A bunch of my friends have, jumped from industry to industry. So, at a young age in high school, I knew I wanted to be a part of the sports world. I was real with myself and knew I wasn't going to make it professional, whether it be, hockey, basketball, or anything. But a big sports fan and wanted to be a part of it. So just did everything I could to gain experience and do any little job that I possibly could to create connections in the world. So started out at Arizona State University, working in the athletics department, doing halftime activations for the women's basketball team, the women's soccer team, men's hockey just got NCAA program at the time. So just doing all the little jobs there, and then must have impressed the right people. Where straight out of school, I was able to get a job with Phoenix Rising, which was going into their first season after their rebrand from Arizona United. After all the ownership changes and the excitement of Didier Drogba coming to town and whatnot. So USL is definitely where I cut my teeth as far as my career goes, and then hockey has always been my passion. So when I had that opportunity to work in the NHL for a little bit, couldn't have asked for a better experience these past couple of years working for the Florida Panthers and going on a Stanley Cup final run, which is a pretty cool thing to experience as a Canadian kid originally from Vancouver, Canada. So doing that for a few seasons, and then my connection with Brett Johnson, as he was a part owner with Phoenix Rising. It was a perfect opportunity for myself to looking for career growth, and seeing what the USL had provided me in my first stop there. It was a no-brainer for myself to take this opportunity and see what this club can do for the Rhode Island community, which I saw a lot of positive impacts on what it did in Arizona.
So I think on a later interview, I'm definitely going to have to unpack some stories that you could possibly share about your time around Didier Drogba, because that is a larger than life personality. But sticking specifically to Rhode Island FC today and understanding a little bit more about what is to come in the season, I think if we can unpack some of the early ticket information that has been shared, and then maybe kind of work down everything up to what fans can expect on 3/16. The first thing that comes to mind is when season ticket memberships first launched, there was a lot of commitments, there was a lot of marketing and advertising around some of those additional hype pieces, if you will, that come as a benefit for being a season ticket member. And we haven't really heard or seen much since, because obviously you've been trying to secure additional sales. But could you unpack for listeners a couple of those additional programs and benefits that have been mentioned in the past? So there's things such as the Bring a Friend vouchers, there's the priority access across immediate games, Open Cup potential matches, as well as Tidewater. There's the ticket exchange program, and then also I think single tickets at member prices were some of the biggest highlights. Can you unpack any more of the mechanics that were listed for season ticket memberships?
Yeah, 100%. And one thing I did want to clarify, it's a question that we've gotten from a lot of folks that reach out to our reps here is, what's the difference between season ticket membership and just season tickets, right? So season ticket membership is just our verbiage here at the club for our season tickets here. Reason why we call it a membership is because there's more than just coming out to our matches throughout the season. We're going to be hosting events to be able to get access for our members to meet the team throughout the season. I know we got some couple of those planned throughout the year to be able to give the opportunity for our most committed fans to be able to meet the team that's essentially going to be playing on the field each and every weekend. So just wanted to clarify that on the season ticket membership side of things. But as far as the incentives go, Bring a Friend vouchers. Our season ticket holders are our biggest supporters, right, Matt? Before we've even rolled the ball, these folks are, supporting us and, wanting this club to succeed. So they are going to be, for lack of a better way of saying it, our biggest, billboards per se, walking around town and talking about the club. And we want them to be able to share the experience of what's going to be happening over at Bryant and Burns Stadium for the 2024 season. So all season ticket holders will have 2 Bring a Friend vouchers that will be automatically included into their package, where they'll be able to redeem those at any time throughout the regular season, where they can either bring 1 additional friend to a match, or if they'd like to bring 2 1 to 2 games, or if they'd like to bring 2 friends to 1 match to share the RIFC experience. So the Bring a Friend voucher is again just to be able to help share kind of the experience of what goes on at Rhode Island Football Club matches. And then as far as the priorities go, we'll have priority access for the 2024 playoffs. Knock on wood here, Matt. Hopefully we'll be hosting some USL playoff games. And if that were to happen, we are definitely going to make sure to take care of our season ticket members, where they will have first right of refusal to their seat location before the general public essentially has access to those seats for the postseason. And then that piggybacks off of what a lot of our fans are waiting for, and that's the stadium at Tidewater. So we understand that was what a lot of folks were looking for, and we still continue to appreciate the support that they're giving us here for the 2024 season. So folks that have committed with us here in this upcoming season, we'll make sure that they'll have first rights to select seats at our brand new shutting toy that's going to be opening up in 2025 in Pawtucket. Single game tickets at member rates. So we understand, this is a first season for our club. So we want to make sure that not only that our members can bring fans with the Bring a Friend vouchers, but again, we understand that there's going to be other folks that our members are going to want to bring out. So we want to provide them that access to get, more affordable tickets compared to if you were not a member. So they'll have access to that, throughout the season. But we'll continue to think of unique and creative ideas to provide that first class experience for our members. So it's an ever growing membership as far as us wanting to improve that membership experience for all of our fans involved.
I know that the tickets have downloaded to the SeatGeek app. I've already been going through that and just kind of looking at how the mechanics of the app work. And I know that Rhode Island FC is working on a USL League-based Rhode Island FC app, but I was curious, could you expand? Do you know yet if the ticket exchange program, if that's going to be done through SeatGeek, or will that be done through something internal to the club and the league?
Yeah, fantastic question. So yes, we will have an app that's kind of partnered with the league and whatnot, but it will be integrated with SeatGeek as well. So essentially, when you're accessing your tickets through our team app, you're essentially looking through SeatGeek. So to answer your question there, Matt, you're essentially going to be making the exchanges on SeatGeek. There's just going to be a lot of that RIFC branding on there, so that that you're managing tickets for Rhode Island Football Club.
So then to kind of transition, since we're on the SeatGeek topic, when it comes to buying tickets right now, is it something that you're encouraging going through your ticket reps and through the club site, or is there any reason that a listener shouldn't be looking directly through SeatGeek? Is there any unlock there that fans may not be aware of?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everyone has their own preferred method, right? There are folks that don't necessarily want to speak, on the phones with the rep, and by all means, we made it online where the process is pretty seamless. But we got great reps over here. They'll be able to walk you through a pretty seamless process as well. Whether you're looking to purchase a group package, we have many different, alternative options to full season ticket memberships as well, including our Flex Pack and our 3-match mini plan, which also includes priority for our 2025 Tidewater Stadium here in downtown Pawtucket. So reps will also be able to take great care of you guys, and I always think it's great to go through a rep just because you may never know. You may find something that might be available back office that may not be available online. So you just never know when you get that personal service from one of our reps that may run into some better options.
I can speak personally as a season ticket member myself in first year. Your reps are nothing but incredible human beings. When they've been amazing in helping me and others get those tickets. So really, really great call out. So I think the last question we have in the season ticket member space is understanding how do the other benefits look like merch discounts and picking up the scarves? I know that there wasn't an official package or anything that went out to fans, but how do those things work, and how will fans acquire those if they haven't already come to the front office to get their scarves?
So we're available here at the front office here in downtown Pawtucket from Monday through Friday from 10 to 4. We're at the visitor center, so they do have some unconventional hours, and so that's why the 10 to 4 is how we're operating currently. But we are also, leading up to the home opener, we plan on being around the community. Actually, Matt, we're in the process of sending some communication out to our members for potential scarf pickups, here in the Providence area this weekend. So we'll definitely continue to have, events around Rhode Island to make sure that our members have the opportunity to pick up scarves if they can't come down to our office, Monday through Friday from that 10 to 4, which, most people are probably working, so it can be a little tough, right? So the goal is to try to get those scarves into our members' hands, before the home opener, but understanding that that may not be a total possibility. So we'll make sure to have it available at the home opener if folks can't make it out to these events or swing by our office, throughout the week as well.
And in regard to the merch discount, I've been in the office each time I've made a pickup, with the exception of the kit reveal. Is it something that will send out membership cards or to collect, or is it something that they can email their reps to get those other unlocks as a perk of being a season ticket member?
Yes. If all members, for those of the members that do not know the season ticket member merchandise discount code, please reach out to either your service rep, or you can always reach out to the tickets at Rhode Island FC email, and we'd be happy to connect you with your designated service rep to not only assist you with the merchandise discount code, but throughout the season as well. They're going to be there throughout the year to provide that first class experience for all of our members. From the moment that they're on the phones with our reps to the moment that their back tires leave our property. We want to make sure that the experience is a good one for everybody.
So getting into the exciting stuff, I actually saw a post on Rhode Island FC's social media today that there's even more sections that have been sold out for the inaugural home match. Can you describe how the overall ticket sell-through is going? How's that process been? What have been some of the highlights that's been going on in the space?
Yeah, it's been very, very encouraging. It's been amazing. We're tracking towards a lot of the season ticket goals and revenue goals that we've had set behind the scenes, and we're tracking well ahead of that, and we'll definitely be reaching those goals here, knock on wood. And then as far as this for the home opener goes, we're very, very close to hitting a few milestones here, and definitely wanting to fill this building up as soon as possible, right? So it's definitely going to be happening here in the next couple of weeks. So I definitely encourage folks that haven't picked up their tickets yet to pick them up here soon, because it's going to be a very, very exciting night for soccer fans here in the Rhode Island community. So I want to make sure that those folks that have been waiting for this are a part of history. I would recommend not waiting too much longer, because we'll be definitely announcing some good news hopefully here in the next couple of weeks.
So one of the other things that we've heard a lot from listeners is questions around themes and event planning that's being built into the game day experience. Obviously, ticketing is only one aspect of that, but I have heard from some other sources in the club that's definitely a part of your involvement, and was wondering if you could share what is coming, what's on the radar, things like giveaway nights, family bundle nights, what kind of themes can listeners expect, or is it too early to really reveal that just yet?
May not be able to announce the exact dates there, Matt, but I'm happy to mention a few theme nights that we are planning on announcing coming up here. Now, obviously, we got the home opener. It's going to be an exciting one on March 16th. We'll have our presenting sponsors, Ortho Rhode Island, be there. We'll be having a gate giveaway that evening. A lot of other off the field activations that I think our fans are going to be super excited about. So obviously we got that big home opener coming up. We have a youth soccer night that we plan on having here pretty early on in the season to be able to commemorate and celebrate with the youth soccer community. I know that they're about to kick off their season here shortly, so want to make sure to be able to provide a fun kickoff moment for the youth soccer community there. So we'll definitely be having that coming here in the near term. And then some other, theme nights that we have planned are a Do Wicked Good night, something that we're looking to do where we're honoring people and organizations that have done great things in our community and want to make sure to honor and celebrate them amongst in front of our 5,000 plus fans in one of the evenings. And then alongside that, we're looking to celebrate, different, parts of, Rhode Island and the different cultures that we have here. So we're going to do something around, Portuguese, heritage. We got a Hispanic heritage night. So definitely a lot of things planned throughout the year to not only come out to check out, Rhode Island Football Club match, but to also bring awareness and celebrate other things throughout the season.
So don't hate me, but it's the number one asked question I get all the time. Is there any consideration from the club to explore a discount night for one of those weekday types of games to bring people out when it comes to like $1 hot dogs? A lot of clubs, including Phoenix Rising, have done those in the past. I'm not holding your feet to the fire here, Bryan, but is it something that the club is at least exploring, or is that not something in the first year that you're considering?
Right. Yes, I definitely have a lot of fond memories of those dollar beer nights over in Phoenix. But yes, we're always thinking about different ideas to when it comes to matches throughout the year, and obviously those midweek games in the USL are always talked about as far as crowds and whatnot. So I have nothing that I can confirm or deny here today, Matt. But what I can tell you is the club is always discussing ideas on what we can do to help not only bring the passionate soccer fans, but those more casual folks that are just looking for some things to do, right? And so definitely dollar beer night or something similar along the lines of that, I'm sure will bring out a decent crowd. But yeah, we're not going to take anything off the table, and we'll continue to think of things to see what we can do to, again, I always come back to this word, but experience, right? That's my job, is to make sure that our fans have a great experience. So we'll continue to work on that.
And then I want to go back to something you said in the last answer around on-field activations, and especially built around the youth. I know from some previous interviews and meetings that you've shared that there is the terrific kids program, which is targeted at, hyping and bringing soccer awareness to the youth, both in our youth soccer arena, but also just fans, younger fans within the state and the area. Could you expand a little bit more about how that would work? Earlier, you had said there's some benefits from being a season ticket member, but overall, how will families be able to get their kids excited through the terrific kids program?
So our kids club membership here, it's a fantastic program. So it is going to be free for all kids that are looking to sign up under the age of 12. So that'll be the age limit for our kids club here. And then all kids club members, they'll receive gifts throughout the year, and special deals, exclusive experience offers throughout the season. So they'll have access to certain things that other folks in the community or a part of the fan base may not get. So to be able to get free access to that for all of our youngest fans, I think is very, very exciting. On top of that, we'll be doing $10 gift certificates for our kids club members on their birthdays. So come celebrate their birthdays with us, and a nice little gift for them getting a year older this year and whatnot. So we'll be doing a lot of different things like that. Let's see. Another cool program, a part of the Kids Club membership, is our sticker collection program. So essentially, once they'll get one sticker for each RIFC match they attend. They'll head over to our Kids Club table in our fan zone, get a sticker for that match, and once they collect 6, we'll have a special exclusive gift for all of our Kids Club members that have collected all 6 of those Kids Club stickers. So we'll do a lot of fun things like that throughout the year to keep engaged with our Kids Club members. And and that's the idea, is to grow the fan base at a young age, and hopefully they're begging their parents to come into RIFC games every weekend.
So there's been several asks around social media about printed tickets versus digital tickets in the current environment. And I think the club has gone out and said that it is a digital system by intent. But is there any way that fans that want some sort of memento or are nostalgic for the version of printed tickets, is that something they can get? Does it exist if they go to the box office or purchase day of? Is there any differentiation there, or will the entire system always be digital for that reason?
The intent for the club is to go 100% digital. Now I understand that there may be in some rare cases where folks may not have, a smartphone or whatever it may be. So we may not go 100% digital. It may be like 99% digital. Where we will have a ticket printer at the box office on day of game to print out receipts or whatnot. I understand that ticket stub collection is a big thing for fans and season ticket holders. So I do have some ideas that I have in mind that I can't necessarily mention right now, but I just want to let our fan base and our season ticket members know that that is something that I am aware of, and am working towards a solution for those that are looking to collect from season to season.
Great. And then just the last two questions. Supporters group. Do we know where they'll be sitting? Or excuse me, we know where the home supporters group is sitting. Do we know where the away supporters group's fans will sit when they do travel in numbers? Has that been confirmed or shared yet with the general public?
No, not with the general public, Matt, but I'm happy to share that just based on the size of the supporter group, they'll be in a mixture of section 8 and 9 in the back rows. So that, I believe, will be in front of the away technical benches. So we'll make sure to have a designated area for the away supporter group, and make sure that, again, that their experience is where it needs to be, and without interfering with our other fans that are sitting, in their vicinity. So, but yes, they will be in section 8 and 9. In some cases, they may be in just one of the sections, just depending on the size of the fan base that's coming out.
We've heard for the inaugural match that New Mexico United's fan group is intended to show up in some sort of serious set of numbers. Have you seen that? Has that been confirmed in partnership with that club, or are you aware of that?
Yes, so I have spoken with some members of the New Mexico United supporter group. They had expressed interest and, of folks wanting to come out to games. Haven't gotten necessarily the numbers yet, but we are expected to see a handful of folks joining us from Albuquerque.
So, Bryan, one last question. We've heard that there may be something special being engineered specifically for season ticket members ahead of the inaugural match. Is there anything you can tease the listeners with?
Yes, so there will be an event that our season ticket members will be able to come down to Byrne Stadium prior to the home opener to check out their seat location, meet the team, and heck, even pick up their scarves as well. So TBD as far as some more information to come here, but I think our members are going to be very, very excited about what we have in store leading up before the home opener here.
That's exciting. Can't wait. So I think in conclusion, for someone that's still on the fence and hasn't bought season tickets, hasn't bought a set of group tickets, hasn't bought the flex plan, what is something that interested parties that are still waiting might not be aware of, or what's that thing that they need to get pushed over the edge and make sure that they're coming to Rhode Island FC games in 2024?
I think what I can tell our fans here that are on the fence is, while it may not be Tidewater, we're going to be bringing as much of the professional experience to Byrne Stadium here in the 2024 season. So it's definitely going to feel like a Rhode Island Football Club match. So the game day experience off the field for our fans it's going to be top notch, while the product on the field is looking like it's going to be a great one as well. So we really appreciate the continued support from everyone, and for those that are waiting, I would again recommend hopping on those tickets for the home opener as soon as possible, and then if you're interested in potential options for next year as well. I think the full season for this year, the flex plan, the mini plan, all have some great options to get you in some priority for the following season. So, for those fence sitters, come on, join us here this season for a great product that we'll have on and off the field, and then will be another exciting thing to celebrate next season as we open up a brand new home again.
Bryan, thanks for joining the pod. We look forward to connecting with you later this season.
Awesome, Matt. Thank you so much for having me.
What did you think of the interview? I mean, we didn't get confirmed dollar beers and dollar hot dogs. It's not off the table. We didn't get a confirmation. Is that a deal breaker for you?
No. I mean, I'm still going to be there. I'm excited to hear that they have a lot of plans for different nights. As a I don't know, hardcore soccer fan or whatever, like, to a certain extent, I kind of don't care about that stuff, but it is important for the families. It gets a lot of people in seats. So
I think Portuguese Heritage Night will be a huge turnout. I went to the Portuguese night in Hartford for the El Paso game, and there were so many
700 Ronaldo jerseys.
Yes, so many Ronaldo jerseys. But a lot of Benfica jerseys as well. You could see that it wasn't just about Hartford that night. It was people that just enjoy soccer being appreciative that there was an extension and recognition of their culture and their traditions. So I'm super pumped about it. You're right. They mentioned that there will be some giveaways for fans. We don't know what those are yet, but that'll be really curious to see how that plays out. And then just the kids programming they were talking about with the terrific kids club and all of the amenities there. So I think that this is going to be really, really great. I'm a little disappointed though. I thought when we bought our tickets, we had bought them to be away from the away supporter group, I should say. I thought that was strategic by being closer to our home supporter group with the Defiant 1636, knowing that any away fans that will be parked in sections 8 and 9 at the top rows, that's us. We're section 7 top rows, so they're going to be right next to us, which I think Bryan needs to kick them to another side of the field. So we're gonna have to talk to Bryan. But that was a bit of a surprise. I thought early on we had been told that they would be in section 1, because they're so far removed. Then does that matter, or is that a concern that the away group is, I won't say danger close, but like only 2 sections removed from the home supporter group?
I don't think so. In bigger leagues with a lot more history, where some supporters groups have beef with each other that gets to violence, unfortunately, you do have to keep them away from each other. I do think there is a benefit though to that. I've seen it at some games where you have the 2 rival factions like kind of taunting each other from the opposite sides of the stadium, and because they're so far, they have to be loud, and it creates such a great atmosphere. Burn Stadium is just our temporary home, so I hope that it's maybe something they think about for Tidewater. But also, I think realistically, what's the traveling support? Like 50 to 100 max, maybe, you think?
Well, I imagine for the Derby, it's going to be a full section.
Oh,
so
yeah,
250
definitely.
people.
But like how many, how many people from New Mexico do you think are going to show up?
So we talked on the interview about that. We did ask specifically to the New Mexico, and Bryan didn't have that answer. I talked to a fan of New Mexico who's coming out, super listener Kevin, and he had said that he thought it was around like the high 20s, low 30s. So I mean, 30 people showing up in the winter is a great turnout in my opinion.
Oh no, I mean that's awesome. I just mean we also have to be like realistic here too. We're not talking about thousands, hundreds,
right,
like some bigger soccer stadiums.
Yeah, so I don't know. So like 20 to 30 is manageable near us, but I guess I was really alluding to if I'm sitting right next to the Hartford people, that we're gonna have to find new tickets for the Derby.
Just heckle. We'll just heckle them the whole time.
So and then the last thing just to touch on is there was that teaser from Bryan about the big reveal for something that will be coming for the season ticket members. All I can say is look forward to it. I assume it's going to come. The information will come in your email. It is something you do not want to miss when you get it. And it is going to be a very exciting thing that they're going to be bringing to the fans. And if you're not a season ticket member, you really may want to think about signing up and becoming one, because this event that they have planned is very special and very, very much a reward for being a season ticket member. So that's all we can say for now, but just really excited that's coming. So let's kind of get things wrapped up here. A couple last things. So one, preseason updates. What we can tell you is, I know there's been a couple questions online about, where's Chico? Where's Chico? Chico hasn't shown up yet. Where's Chico? The good news is his P1 visa did clear with his travel requirements, so he is inbound at some point to Rhode Island FC. We don't know if he'll be first coming to Rhode Island and then heading to Bermuda, or if he'll be meeting the team in Bermuda specifically. That hasn't been officially announced. I imagine that he would come here first and get settled in, but that's only a couple days away, because the club heads out pretty early in the morning, either Friday or Saturday, to head down to Bermuda. So either he's already here, or he's on his way, or the club will be meeting him in Bermuda. Not really sure on that one yet. But when I started thinking about that, it's kind of crazy to think that we've gone through this many weeks of the preseason and Chico hasn't been there. I guess what I wanted to ask you is does this change anything for the remainder of the preseason, like in terms of effort, in terms of integration, in terms of tactics? Like, Chico was very much just a poacher and a goal machine. He found his own way to be in the right places. Like, is this something that will hurt the club as we get less than 20 days before the first game?
I don't think so. What's important is that we're just talking about one piece of a whole, like, puzzle or machine, or however you want to look at it. So if everyone is kind of starting to understand and know their roles, I mean, we still have a little bit of time for him to kind of to ease into the team, especially with the attacking wealth that we have up front. Like, I'm not worried.
Okay. I don't think it matters. And I think, again, coach has had so many weapons that for some reason, if Chico hasn't shown up well or maintain his fitness for some reason, or is in some sort of preseason slump, coach has different weapons to choose from, and it's not like he hasn't been getting those minutes in with the rest of the players. So I agree with you. I still anticipate Chico starts in the starting 11 for the game against New Mexico, but yeah, it'll be finally good to see the entirety of the squad gel and come together. So we could see some insane numbers in the Bermuda games. Like, we could see some 7-1, 7-2 performances. Chico just scores 2 hat tricks in a session.
That long range drone I ordered never came in. I don't think we're going to be able to watch those games.
I'm sure the Bermuda Federation has blacklisted me from any future media inquiries. I started getting a little too insistent at the end there. So let's start wrapping things up and get out of here. What events do we have?
All right, so RIFC is hosting 2 separate watch parties this Saturday, kicking things off first at Moniker Brewing, starting at 10 a.m. for the Manchester United versus Fulham match, and then again at Hope Street Pizza at 3 p.m. for the Arsenal versus Newcastle game. Both watch parties will raffle tickets for the game, and if you still haven't picked up your season ticket member scarf, you'll be able to do so there. Also that morning, if you're at the Providence Farmers Market, make sure to say hello to the street team as they walk around and spread the gospel of RIFC to the masses. The first official unofficial fan meetup has been set for March 2nd at the Guild at 12 p.m. If you'd like to come out and meet other fans of the club, get to know more about the supporters group, or just enjoy a Saturday drinking some adult beverages and talking soccer, that's the place to be.
And while we can't officially reveal and take the club's thunder, that secret season ticket member idea will be sometime after March 2nd. So if you're trying to think where do I need to plan? We can't give you the specific date, but it will be in the early days of March. So just anticipate that as well. So you're not thinking is this going to be something that comes up next Monday and I'm busy. So plan accordingly, and hopefully the club will get that information out there soon. Just one listener question and a listener update that we have to go over real quick.
Yeah. So Seth here is just updating us about the New England thing. He's referring to Hartford not being in New England.
Okay, so Seth, throw in shade. Connecticut doesn't count. Okay. I love
Nice.
it. I love
and
it.
he also thanks us for the recommendations.
So Seth also said if we ever need a referee to split the decision or educate us on some sort of, egregious concern or something that happens in one of the games, he'd be happy to come on. So Seth, we'll try to figure that out. Our schedules are not, easy to accommodate. Sometimes we record early, sometimes we record extremely late. So if we ever have the chance to collaborate, we'll definitely be in future partnerships. So we'll stay tuned on that. And we'll keep you posted.
Definitely. And we got another one here from Tim. He's been seeing varying answers on how many roster spots a USL championship team has, but the most common is 26. He wants to know if that's correct. And then assuming it's 26, the announced player count stands at 21. He wants to know if we are anticipating more signings before March 16th. So I did a little bit of looking up, and the 26 number that I'm seeing, the dates on those are pretty old. I found some information, but I couldn't find a date on it. So I got a hold of a PDF that says 30. But the problem is I don't know what season it's for.
So we are still waiting for our operations handbook to come from the league. They're finalizing the 2024 one right now. So I can only go off of old news or old information, like what you were kind of sharing there. It is 26, but there is a cap to 30 if you have an academy system or like a supplemental roster of players that are super young, but you need to bring them on. So like the kid that signed last year for for Sacramento that was 13, he would have been in one of those outlier spots above the 26. And then when he got his quote unquote signing, he would have then converted to one of the 26 or under one of the 26 spots. So it's a little bit of a gray area right now since we can't tell you what the 2024 conditions are. But having said that, to answer the other part of the question, in terms of total count, if you ask Coach, the quote that he will live by forever is the roster is never done. It's always being constructed. It's always being improved. That being said, I can't think of a position of need in the immediate with the exception of that right back, which I think we've shared previously. And again, I think Clay Holstead can easily slot in there if it's needed. But if the coach or if the staff can find a gifted right back to make sure that we have depth, then I wouldn't be surprised if that would be our 22nd player. But then after that, I don't see. I think in the early interview back in September, he had said 22 was the magic number, basically one for each position of need. So
yeah, but we have 3 goalkeepers. So do you think one of them has to play in midfield? And do you think that's actually how players like Ederson and Manuel Neuer got so good at passing? Because they're just like, well, I have to, during practice, I'm now a midfielder.
I mean, well, that's the story of a lot of good defenders, right? In their youth teams and their academies, they started as strikers because that's what they played in the earliest developments of their sport. Then they realized they weren't good enough to be strikers, but they had spent all that time doing the clinical shots, doing the practices. And so, by the collegiate time, they've converted into a defender or a wing back or something like that. I love those kinds of conversions because then it starts them in one career first, and then they have those skill sets, and then they move on to an equally important role in the team. So I still stand by, if it's not a right back, we don't need it for the time being. Who knows what the season will unfold? That's the beauty of soccer and having to play as many matches as you do, is you just don't know what will happen. So I don't want to put any jinxes on this club, but it'd be better to have open roster spots than to have a full team and then need to adjust because of something that could happen down the road.
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't be surprised though if we pick 1 or 2 up more, but it's got to make sense, and they're most likely going to be call it non-starting players who are more for that depth, like you said, in case of injuries. But it's always good to keep some slots open as well too. And that's going to wrap it up for today. If you guys want to find us on the internet, we're on Twitter, Threads, and TikTok at RIFC Podcast. We have an Instagram at Raising Anchor, And there's that website you can check out, www.raisinganchorpodcast.com.
Anchors up.
Anchors up, buddy.